Okay, I'm going to do a grade 10 exam paper, practical one from June examination. Just going to open question 1, the data for question 1. Okay, so we've been given an incomplete program. That's the GUI over here. It's a radio group with a bunch of options. Okay, the first part of the question, complete the code for question 1. Write code to do the following when form Q1 is created. Okay, so that means it must be on create event of your form. That's where you must code this. Change the caption of form Q1 to small 5. Change the height of that form to 400. Change the width to 500. Change the stretch property to property of the image Q1 to true, and then change the size of the font label Q1 to 36. Okay, so all this should happen under the form create, on create, and it's just basically changing the properties, setting properties. So I'm going to go to the event form create. They also left us comment there to enter code for question 1.1. Okay, so let's start with the first one. It's the caption of the form Q1. Okay, so let's say form Q1 caption, and the value should be small 5. Okay, caption is a string, that's why we are putting the small 5 in single quotation marks. Okay, so if it's an integer value, we don't need to put it in single quotation marks, but this one is a string. Okay, next one is the height. There's also form Q1. So I'm gonna change the height, and you can see that's an integer, so the value will not be in single quotation marks for that one. So the height, they want us to set it to 400. Okay, next one is the width of the, it's also integer. Okay, so width is equals to 500. All of this count 10 marks. 100. Next one, change the stretch property of the image Q1. Image Q1. Okay, and the stretch property is a Boolean property. So that one, we don't need to put that in single quotation marks. Stretch, they want us to set it to true. So it's not in single quotation marks. And the last one is for our label Q1. Label Q1, and we need to change the font size of that label to 36. So let's say font dot size, it's also integer value, and we need to put that to 36. Okay. Let's save. Okay, let's test. Okay, so change it to small 5. The image stretch. I think some of this we will not be able to see, but this is a font over here. Okay. Let's have a look at the second part. Okay, radio group small 5. Declare variable name, name of a string. Write code to do the following in order to display the correct image. Assign the selected radio group items text to a variable name, name. Okay, so we need to extract something from that radio group, the text. Assign it to our new variable. Join the variable name with the file extension JPG. And then load in the corresponding image into the image Q1 using the load from file method. Okay, so let's do just step by step to break it down. All of this counts 8 marks. A little bit more difficult than question 1. So question 1 was simply just changing the properties under a specific event. Okay, so declare variable name is string. So go back. Okay, so I'm going to declare variable. Do it over here. I think you can also make it global. Well, I'm going to make a local variable. The name is name. Data type is string. Okay, they asked us to make a string. Then we want to capture it from the radio group. The text. Okay, the next step it says assign the selected radio group items text to the variable name name. Okay, so name is equals to the radio group name is RGB question 1. Then we're gonna say RGB Q1 RGP for radio group. Dot items. We want to extract the item that was selected, and we want to know which one was selected. We must use the radio group item index. Okay, there's also another method that you can maybe use here. You can maybe use if statements to check which one was selected and then assign that to name as well. This method is a little bit shorter, so let's stick with this one. Let's copy that out. Radio group 1 dot the item index. Okay, so if the first one is selected, the item index will be 0, and it will take item 0 and assign it to name. If the second one is selected, then item index will be 1, and it will take the second item from that radio group. Okay, and then now we're already assigned it to our variable over there. Now join the variable name with the file extension .jpg. Okay, so if we plus 2 strings together, it will concatenate them, it will put them together, basically join them together. So we need to plus 1 string to another string, and we still need to assign it to name. Yeah, join a variable name with the file extension name. Okay, so we're going to say the current value of name. That's going to be whatever was selected in your items, plus then the file extension of that file. They said the file extension of that file is a JPG. So we need to say plus JPG. So it's .jpg. Okay, of course, this part will be the file extension, and the part into name will be the file name. And then we need to load in the file, if I remember correctly. Load a corresponding image into the image queue using the load from file. Okay. Now, I'm going to say, I think the name is imgq1 dot picture dot load from file. Okay, and inside the round brackets we need to specify the file name. Okay, so we already built up the file name. It's inside our variable name. So it's the file name plus the file extension already added together. We can put that in there. I'm going to save and run so we can test this question 1. Okay, so whatever we click, it will load in the correct image for us. Okay. This all counted 8 marks. So total for question 1 is 18 marks. And now we're going to do question 2. So question 2, I would definitely recommend always to have a look at the GUI, because the GUI will also tell you what is supposed to happen. If I look at the GUI here, the user is probably going to enter the number of adults, the number of children, and then he needs to do the calculation to display how many adults were entered, calculate the price for that, and then looks like we are going to calculate the VAT plus the total price. Okay. Let's read the question. Okay, program for was already provided. Okay, so I already opened it. Okay, the program must calculate the total price as well as the amount allocated to VAT. Declare the following variables using the correct naming convention. The number of adults and children as integer, VAT and all prices as real. Okay. I would recommend that you also read through the whole question, and then you can go back, because then you can have a clear view of what you must do. Okay, then you can break it up in smaller steps. For example, these first 2 bullets, declare the following variables. I think we should start with that. Okay, so number of adults and children as integer, and the VAT and all prices as a real. Okay, so I'm gonna declare that under my button. They also show us here the code for question 2 should be there. Fine. Gonna make it local variables. Gonna make I adults. I to show us or to tell us that it's an integer. And I children. Okay, the next variables, I'm going to make R VAT, because I know we need to calculate the VAT. And there's going to be R total, grand total. And that should be declared as real data type. Okay. The VAT number, adults and children, VAT and all prices as real. Okay, so let's continue for now. Write code to do the following. Read the number from the adults from the spin edit and assign it to the correct variable. Read the number of the children and assign it to the variable. Okay, so we need to capture values now from the spin edits. These spin edits, and we need to put that inside our variables. Okay, so that's pretty much straightforward. Let's just check the name of that spin edit. The name of this one is set adults. Okay, so the value. Okay, so we're taking the value from the spin edit, we're putting it into an integer variable I adult. Okay, so that's no conversions necessary. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this one. Of course, we need to do the same with the number of children. So I'm going to take it, but this time we can't take it from adults. We should take it from the second spin edit, set children. Okay, so we are taking the children one and put it into the I children variable. Okay, the next step, let's go back to the question paper. Okay, we did those first two bullets. Calculate the total price for the adults and children. The price per adult is 80 Rand and the price per child is 40 Rand. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly make another two variables here. R adult and R children, because I want to calculate those values. R adult is equals to the number of adults times, I think it was 80 Rand, yes, and the children is 40. I'm going to multiply that one with 80 for the adults, and I'm going to put it into the variable or adult. Okay, I'm going to do the same with the children. gonna calculate the value for the children. I'm gonna put that into our children. I need to take the amount of children, we multiply that with 40. Okay, 40 rand. I calculate the total price, but okay, calculate the overall total price. And we already have our total. So now we need to add the adults to the children to get the total. The total amount that is owed. Okay, so that will be in our total. Calculate the VAT using the formula below. Okay, so then we must use this formula. Already have value or VAT. I actually have a shorter method to calculate this, but let's use this method. They say our total minus our total divided by 115. Okay, so let's say our total minus divided by this is going to be reals, so we need to use the slash and not the diff, times 100. Okay, and that will be our VAT. And now I assume that we need to do some output. Okay, so the input was captured, we did the processing, now it's for the output. Clear the reach edit component. Okay, so next step, we need to clear that reach edit component. The name is red q2. To clear reach edit, it's reach edit.clear. Okay, and display the number of adults and the total price for an adult. Okay, so now we need to display something. Lines.add. We're going to add a line to this reach edit. Adults. It's a string, so I'm putting it in single quotation marks. Plus, what must we display next? The number that was selected in the spin edit. Mine is in iAdult. Okay, this one is integer, so we need to convert it to a string. int to string. Another tip that I can maybe give you here, you need to display a few things here. It's the adults as a string, the number as integer, and the actual values are real. So maybe you can just firstly add the adults part, run it, check whether it's working, and if it's working, you add the next part, the adults, and then the price. Otherwise, if you just code this one line and there's something wrong, it's a little bit more difficult to see and check what is wrong with your code. Okay, so now I've added the number of adults and I want to display the price as well. And price for adults is in our total. So I need to convert that one from a float to a string. And I think it was actually in a currency format, yeah. Okay, they don't mention it, but I can see on the output that it's displayed in currency format. So FF currency with 2 decimal values. Okay, float to string if, remember the if, and then fixed format is going to be currency with 2 decimals, 6 left of the comma. Okay, so like I said, if you type everything in now and there's one small mistake, it's quite difficult to pick up what's wrong. Then you have to remove stuff. Okay, so I recommend start adding the one thing at a time. If it's working, you can add the next one and then you can know where the problem is. Okay, next one, we need to display the number of children. So we're going to copy and paste because it's going to be pretty much the same. We're just going to replace the variables and stuff. Children. Replacing I adults. No. With I children, not our children. And the price is in our children. So I'm going to replace our adult with our children. Okay, and then they want us to add a line of code just to separate all this stuff to make it look a little bit neater. And that line is also going to be strings. So it's going to be in single quotation marks. Okay, next one is the VAT. We want to display the VAT. So I'm going to say VAT plus our VAT over here. Again, this VAT needs to be in a currency format, so I'm just going to copy this one to save some time. And then I'm going to replace the number of children with VAT. So we're going to change the VAT to a currency as well. Last one we need to display is the total price. So I'm going to use this one. Copy that again. It's not VAT, it's our total price. And it's going to be an R total. So I'm replacing the R VAT with R total. Okay, let's save. I think we're done with this question. Yes, nothing else. Let's see whether it works. Okay, we have syntax error. Let's have a look. When I copied, I didn't copy the extra bracket, the extra round bracket. I need to add that one, and because I copied it from there, also need another round bracket there. So one opening, two opening, one closing, two closing. Okay, so for every open bracket we need to close it afterwards. Yeah, let's make it 2 adults, 1 children, calculate price. Okay, so it's actually displaying the correct info. The only problem is that it's all on top of each other. Okay, so I'm gonna add some code to split it up. Okay, so first with the adults, let's say plus #9. Okay, #9 is the tab key on the keyboard. So I want it to move up, and then maybe after that one also add a #9 plus #9. Let's test it now. Hopefully it will look a little bit better. Yeah, the first one is way better, so I'm going to apply that to all the others now as well. So putting a hashtag in there, the hashtag in there. Also going to do it for the 2 bottom ones, the VAT and the total price. So I'm going to put a #9 in there, #9 in there. So it's the total price plus the tab. Then it's going to simulate the tab key on the keyboard plus the total value that's been formatted to a currency. Okay, this one can maybe move up more as well. Maybe another tab key there. Okay. So you can actually put 2 tabs next to each other. Like that, and it will simulate the tab key twice. There we go. So everything is aligned now. Children, adults, but is calculated, and total price. Okay, let's continue with question 3 of the exam. Go with question 3. Okay, generate numbers. Each drone scans and records its current position as coordinates on a 2D grid. The values of variables y1 and y2 are already entered into the properties. The label y1 and label 2 label 2 respectively. Okay, there they are. Declare the following global variables. Okay, so they must be on top in the public section of the form. X as integer, x1, y1 and y2 as real numbers. Okay, so we need an integer and then some real variables. Again, I would recommend read through the whole question paper, get a general idea what's going on, and then go back and then follow the steps one at a time. Okay, don't try to do too many things at the same time. Okay, so let's start with declaring our global variables. Okay, make sure it's going to be global, so that means that it's going to be on top over here. Okay, so they set x1 as an integer. No, is it x1? Yeah, x2, sorry. x2 as an integer. And the other 3 variables, x1, y1 and y2 should be reals. Okay. Real numbers. Write the code to do the following. Generate a real number between 0 and 200 for the variable x1 and display it in the label x1. Okay, so we need to use random or random range for that, and it needs to be displayed in the label x1. The label x1 is one there, that one over there. Okay. This should happen under, let's have a look, under button 3.1. Okay, so write code for 3.1 here. Okay, so we need to pick a random number and then assign it to x1. Okay, then generate a number, integer number between 0 and 200 for variable x2 and display it in the second label, x2. Okay, so it's basically the same thing, both of them. So I'm going to say x1. I'm going to use random range. Okay, just make sure you're between 0 and 200. Random range between 0 and 200. I think that should work. Then we must do the same for x2. So I'm going to copy and paste that. Just change that one to x2. And then we need to display that in our labels. Label x1 and label x2. Caption. Is x1. And oh yeah, I still need something here. x1 is a real, so we need to convert that one from a float to a string. Okay. Second one, we need to take the value x2, and we need to put that into the caption label x2. x2 is an integer, so it's gonna need to convert that from an integer to a string. Int to string. Okay, because it's x1 and x2, it's actually quite difficult to see. You can't immediately see whether it's an integer or real data type. You'll have to go back to the top to make sure what the data type is for those variables. Okay, so label 2.caption. I converted that one. Next one. Okay, so we did generate and then assign it in the value of label 1. Okay, so we're over here now. Now we need to take the value from the label and we need to put it in the variable. So it's actually the other way, to not capturing the input, but we are extracting some data. Okay, so let's say y1 is equals to label y1 dot caption. Okay, this is a string, this is a real, so we need to convert that. I assume this part of the question paper just wants us to test your conversion from a string to a float. So now it's a str to float. Okay, well, this is a string, this is a real, so I need to convert it. And there was a second one as well, but we need to extract it from label 2. I think that's actually wrong. Let's just check the name. Label y1 and y2. These are y1 and y2. Okay, and put it in our global variables y1 and y2. Okay, so let's just run it, test it. Okay, so it's actually loading everything in for me. Okay, next one. Pattern 3.1. Question 3.2. I think that should be 3.2. To calculate the distance a rhino has walked, the following function must be used. Okay, so they're giving you the formula, so you just need to know your mathematical functions to be able to calculate that distance. They say calculate the distance the rhino has traveled using the distance formula. Display the result in a message box. I think that's maybe just a show message. Rounded to 1 decimal. Okay, so we need to use the float to string f, the fixed one, to round it to 1 decimal with the units on kilometers at the end. Okay, so yeah, here's a screenshot, so it looks like a show message. Okay, so now we need to use those values. Okay, but calculate the distance, and that's under 3.2. It's over here, 3.2. I'm going to make a variable or distance. It needs to be a real because there's going to be decimal values. So it needs to be real. And I also want us to actually make it with 1 decimal. So or distance, it's a real data type. Okay, so let's go and get that formula. So I'm just gonna type that in here. We need to use square. X2 minus x1 Luckily we don't need to calculate our own formula. It was given to us. And that looks pretty much correct. And then I want us to show message that value. Or distance. So it's a real data type. So I need to convert that one. Show message. Just check yes. What's wrong with this one? Oh, it's working. Okay, so show message. Let's convert that from a float to a string. If gonna be if fixed format fixed. I think they said it must be 1 decimal. Display result rounded to 1 decimal. Okay, so to 1 decimal. And they also want us to display the kilometer at the back. So we need to plus that with another string, kilometers. Okay, so maybe just try to display it and then you can add the kilometers afterwards. I'm going to do everything at once to save a bit of time. Okay, it's going to generate the numbers. Click on 76.8 kilometers. Okay, so I converted it from a float to string, change it so it's only 1 decimal, and then I added 2 kilometers at the back. And I think we are done with question 3. Okay, so now I'm going to start with question 4, the problem solving question. Okay, they say the system must determine whether a visitor is allowed access to a specific part of the game reserve. Write code to do the following based on rules below. Visitor must have a valid permit. And that's why that checkbox is there. To enter the game reserve, if the visitor has a valid permit, obtain the age from an input box. So if that one is checked, they must pop up an input box. If the visitor is under 12 years old, they may only enter the game reserve with an adult. If the visitor is between 12 and 18 years old, they are allowed to enter the game reserve during the day from 6 to 6. If the visitor is over 18, they may enter the game reserve at any time. If the visitor does not have a valid permit, access to the game reserve must be denied. Okay, they show us a little output box. Show message here, output. Access denied. Refer to the screenshots, okay? For more clarification, make use of the correct naming conventions for all variables. Here's some examples. Here's another example. Okay, another example you may enter. Okay, so let's start with that one. Let's start from the visitor must have a valid permit to enter the game reserve. So I'm going to start off by checking whether that first checkbox is checked. Okay, because if it's checked, then we can go and check for the other stuff like the age. If it's not checked, we can display access denied. Code question 4. I'm going to say if the checkbox. Do they give us the name of the checkbox? No. Let's have a look here. I'm gonna copy the name out. If that checkbox dot checked is equals to true, so that means it was checked. Then I want to go in, but there's an else. If it's not checked, I want to display the message access denied. Okay, so the message is going to be a show message. Okay, access denied. Okay, and then the next step. If the checkbox was checked, we must call an input box and obtain the age from the input box. Okay, so I'm going to make a variable here. Age. It's going to be integer. And if it's checked, I'm going to get the age from the input box. Input box. Okay, we need 3 values for input box. I don't think they specified what must be in there. Okay, so just make it something like age for the heading, and the label should be enter your age, and let's give a default value for something like 12. Okay, but I didn't specify that anyway in the question paper. Maybe I missed it. Okay, so the user is going to enter his age, and he's going to put that age into the integer. But whatever the user is going to type into that input box is going to be in a string data type. So we need to convert this whole thing to an integer. So I'm going to take my whole input box, and I'm going to convert it from a string to an integer. Okay, because age is an integer. Okay, let's test it quickly. Permit is checked. Click on a button. Here's my heading. Second part is the caption of that label, and the third value is the default value I want inside my input box. Okay, the next step, I think that's the one where we have to test the ages. If the visitor is under 12 years old, he may only enter the reserved as an adult. Okay, so now we captured the age, so now we can test the age. You can say if that age is smaller than 12. If it's smaller than 12, okay, what must happen if it's smaller than 12? You must put a show message that says you may just check. You may only enter with an adult. Okay, only enter the game reserve with an adult. Maybe I can copy that. And I don't need to type that long message out. only into the game reserve with an adult. Okay. So if it's smaller than 12. Let's test it quickly. It's permit. And it's 10 or 11 years old. Only into the game reserve with an adult. Okay. Next one. If the visitor is between 12 and 18 years, they are allowed to enter the game reserve during 6 and 6. Okay, so let's go back to the coding. Let's put in an else if. Else if the age is bigger or equals to 18. Bigger or used to equals to 12, sorry. And it should be smaller than 18. Equal to or smaller than 18. Between 12 and 18. So it must be smaller than 18. Okay, so because there's an and, we need to put both sides in brackets. And the age should be smaller than 18. So let's check. The visitor is between 12, so that doesn't mean it includes the 12. So I think that one should be out. So it must be older than 12 and it must be younger than 18. Between 12 and 18, allowed to enter the game reserve during 6 and 6. Show message. Okay, during the day from 6 to 6. If the visitor is over 18, he may enter the reserve at any time. Okay, so that means that we need another else here. Else, begin, and then you can maybe test here, but if the user is not under and is not between these two, should be old enough, but we can test it. Done. We can say enter any time over 18. Okay. Okay, let's read through it quickly again. If the checkbox is checked, it means it has a permit. We capture the age. We test that age. If it's under 12, that means it's only allowed to enter game reserve with an adult. Else, if his age is bigger than 12, but it's still under 18, we must say you're only allowed to enter 6 to 6. Else, that means he wasn't smaller than 12 and it's not between 12 and 18, then it should be an adult. He must be able to enter. Okay, obtain from input box. If the visitor is under 12, yes. If the visitor is between 12 and 18, that's the time. If it's over 18, but over here they say actually if the visitor is over 18, they may only enter. So it means that if it's 18, I think they actually want him to be in this category. Visitor between 12 and 18. Okay, so let's just change that to bigger than and equal to 18. And maybe this one as well. Okay, so if it's not 18, that means it's over 18. Let's run it, let's test it. Got a permit, age is, let's make it 9. Okay, fine. We make it 15. That is correct. And now let's test the adult part. Insert anytime. Okay, that is it for question 4. And this is the screen put. Maybe just make sure that your output is exactly the same as the output they are giving you.